We will open the General Committee meeting of Monday the 8th of December 2025. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993, Cowra Council is recording General Committee and Council meetings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded on Tuesday morning. Please note that at this meeting, by speaking at these meetings, you agree to being recorded. Please ensure that when you speak at this meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others, use appropriate language at all times. Cowra Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Attendance, apologies and application for leave. I have Councillor Kay is on leave. Thank you, Councillor Watt. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Speechley. Councillor Watt?
Not needed, thank you.
Councillor Speechley? Anyone else wish to comment? Right of reply? I'll put the motion. All those in favours? Aye. Thank you. I declared it carried. 1.4 disclosures. Geez, I'm struggling tonight. Disclosures of interest. Councillors and staff, please indicate in relation to any interest you need to declare. A, what report or item you are declaring an interest in, whether the interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and what is the nature of that interest. Councillor Speechley.
I have a non-pecuniary interest in item 6.1, I think it is a DA application. 6.2, apologies, my document's still opening up. My employer is the person who's put the application in, so I will leave the room.
6.2. Yep.
JR Morgan Investments.
Yep. You will leave the room?
I will. Thank you.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 6.2 as a family member was involved in preparing the submission. I'd also like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 7.4 as a family member supported the preparation of one of the objections, and I will leave the room for both items.
Anyone else got any conflicts? Thank you. We have no presentations, no public forums. Can I take a motion to confirm the minutes of the General Committee meeting held on the 10th of November 2025? Thank you. Councillor Downing. Councillor Fagan. Thank you, Councillor Downing.
No.
Councillor Fagan.
No, thank you, I'm fine.
Anyone else wish to comment? Right of reply, Councillor Downing. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. Item 3.1, the draft child safety policy. Can I have a move that be put onto public exhibition? Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is to place a revised child safe policy on public exhibition for 28 days. Very good work so far that council staff have undertaken to review and update this, and now we'll get it out for public comment. Of course, unfortunately, this comes off the back of some terrible negative press nationally, so a good thing for us to update and make sure we're staying on top of processes as they evolve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Horton. Through our council activities, both as councillors and staff and volunteers, we interact with young people quite regularly, and it's very important that in our roles we have some clear policies to protect our young people, but also this policy articulates in a lot of ways the respect that council outlines that we give the young people and the voice that they have in our community. I think quite fitting that Councillor Horton and I are moving this motion as the representatives to the Cowra Youth Council. As we see, we're quite often supervising and facilitating those staff, and it's really important that there are rules and regulations about how that works, and important that we have that clear for the parents and the kids. So very happy to put forward this for public consultation.
Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a bit of a soapbox issue for me on this one. Look, and of course I fully support everything my fellow councillors have said. This is to put the child safe policy out on public exhibition. But I have to be honest, when I first started council, I was actually astounded that you could become a councillor and not have a working with children check. I just think we're in a position of perceived authority, and I think it should be an across the board thing. I'm very grateful that we've now brought it in for our youth council workers, and there's certainly no presumptions of anything untoward there, but as a safeguard. But anyway, that's not within our realm to mandate. But it's disappointing to me that we can't all have it, and then I think the parents could feel a bit more relaxed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Wild.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Kiss has landed on an area which we probably need to look at a bit more. The first paragraph by the General Manager in the background there sort of said, as little contact with children on a day-to-day basis, and consequently no employee position are deemed to be primarily working with children on a regular basis. I think from memory the traffic control staff and our staff that was doing the road repair works in Bay Street near the public school had to get working with children clearance, even though they weren't seeing children, but they were in an area where children were. If I remember there, I know the RFS have had to ensure any road control things they do, their employees or volunteers have the proper certificates. I did get one when I was with the Youth Council, and that was quite a few years ago, and it wasn't as relevant as what it is now, but I thought at the time it was something that we should have. I was asked to adjudicate at a line's using the year function for a bit longer than an afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, and for me to do that I had to get my current clearance had lapsed, and we had to get a new one to satisfy the line's protocol. We're there interviewing students for 3 or 4 hours, and we'd have to have the proper clearance. So the area is very wide open, and there has in the second paragraph that does highlight where some people do have contact with children on a more regular basis, but I just don't know if that is enough. It's the law is favoured one side to a certain extent. I don't condone anyone that does the wrong thing by children, but it's sort of used as a threatening procedure, and it's a bit like lawyers wanting to get your compensation if you fell over in the street, that someone would be responsible for that crack or little pothole, and this can happen if something with a child. It must be remembered it hasn't got any period it doesn't lapse after a certain period. It can come back and haunt us 15, 20 years later. So anyway, we'll put this out in public exhibition and see if anyone does have any more to say about it, and it'll be a policy if adopted that we do need to follow. It's not just a policy there that we say, yes, we've ticked the box and we've complied. It's the application of the policy to the things we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Downing?
Just a question to the General Manager who put this report up. Is it a consideration that possibly all the councillors would have a working with children check? Can we add that at some stage, or is that not expected?
It certainly wouldn't be my expectation if council wanted to make a decision to seek that from all councillors. That's within the ambit of council to do that. That's certainly not my recommendation, no.
Yeah. And also, if someone was to give us feedback once this is on public exhibition, and they suggest that that was something that we could take into consideration when we pass it the next time?
You can do that now, before you put it on public exhibition, if that's something that's the will of the council, that all councillors are required to have a working with children check.
Yeah.
That's within your capacity to do that.
I'm just thinking that for example, the Peace Board Committee runs the Cowra Youth Peace Forum, and that's a room full of students. So there's probably other areas, as Councillor Wright, Councillor Kiss have mentioned, so perhaps it wouldn't be a bad idea to go that bit further than we are expected to.
Would you like to move an amendment to that recommendation so that when we put the draft out that it contains that councillors must all have a working with children?
Yeah, I think so.
The mover and the seconder, happy with that?
Okay, so say.
So, I don't disagree. My question is around process. If we have someone elected, and we were back and forth about this, if we have someone elected who then can't secure a working with children check, what position does that leave us in then?
That, just thinking off the top of my head, that councillor would be in breach of the policy, so I'd expect the council at that time would vary that policy. It certainly wouldn't make them ineligible for election, but if they couldn't meet the policy, there just need to be an acknowledgement that that councillor cannot meet the terms of that policy.
Could I propose?
Councillor Watt?
Could I propose an amendment here to postpone this report to receive consideration of what we could put in the policy to perhaps look at what restrictions we could write around potentially what committees or what roles that councillor could take on if they weren't if they didn't hold a working with children check. I think it's difficult, but I think I'd like for the team to go and perhaps have a look at some other council policies or get some advice from Local Government New South Wales to tighten it up, because I think it's very important, as both Councillor Downing and Kiss raised, that we do come into contact with children in a lot of different capacities, and there are a number like Sport Rec, a number that you automatically do come in contact with young people, but there's also, I guess a bit of blurred lines in where that fits, but I think it'd be worth us having a bit more consideration. So to say that clearer, I recommend that we postpone consideration of this policy. Do I need to say why? No, that's my proposed motion.
We need a seconder for that amendment.
Or do we say, is it accepted by the mover? Is that, can I do that?
I think, Mr Chairman, you're effectively getting the motion withdrawn and a new motion.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll withdraw that first recommendation, and Councillor Horton, are you going to second Councillor Watt's motion?
I'll second that we defer until we get further advice, yeah.
Thank you. Yep. Anyone wish to comment on that?
Just a question.
Councillor Wright?
Was Councillor Downing's amendment seconded?
I think it was withdrawn, wasn't it, Councillor Downing?
Drawn, but I'm happy with Councillor Watt's amendment.
Okay. You're happy with that, Councillor Wright?
Just the procedural way of running the meeting, an amendment was put forward and it went into debate before you did get a seconder. It's, what's happened, I'm quite happy with, but there is need for proper meeting procedure and to give someone that's moved an amendment a chance to get the seconder. And if it lapsed, something else can go on. So we sort of went into debate before we had the seconder. I'm just being a very old fart of a thing here today, but as long as the process is, the general manager is happy with the meeting process.
Thank you, Councillor. Your point is taken. So I think we are up to a new motion, and anyone else wishes to comment on that motion?
Yeah, I'll comment. I'll just comment for things to think about going forward. Like I indicated with the Lions Club when I did judging youth of the year, it's only for an afternoon, but as councillors we get to go to schools for presentations, we go to events at the festival or the street festival, where there's children there, but we're not there actually directly talking to them, but it's just covering ourselves, or covering council that people that where we do get sent to, like for village meetings or something. It's a hornet's nest when you dig into it. It'd be very difficult to have a policy that covers everything, but I think us as councillors and our employees need to know that we have something here that's going to protect them if they've done nothing wrong.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Right to reply, Councillor Watt. Sorry, Councillor Kiss.
Mr. Mayor. So I didn't catch the second one.
That's now Councillor Watt's motion, and the second was Councillor Horton. Councillor Kiss would like to comment.
Just briefly to say, I'm really glad I did jump on that soapbox. I've even written notes and notes and notes, but I look at it retrospectively and say, if something, God forbid, was ever to happen, as a parent, to actually find out that a perpetrator had potentially not had a working with children check for 10 years, but council, because of their policy, hadn't actually checked it. But anyway, we don't need to go any further with it, but I'm just really, really pleased that we've decided to look into it, so thank you, councillors.
Now I'll ask Councillor Watt right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors. I really appreciate you raising that, Councillor Kiss. It's something very important, and it's something that shocked me a lot as a councillor, that we weren't required to have that. I'm a little bit cheeky and just use my right of reply to say thanks for raising that, Councillor Wright. I did jump in and I apologise to Councillor Downing for not following procedure, but I got too excited that we could fix it.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed. Thank you. 3.2, the Section 355 Committee draft minutes of the CBD Committee of the 17th of November 2025. Councillor Watt. Councillor Downing, thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my notes. So, we had a very busy and lively meeting of the CBD Committee last month. Firstly, I want to thank Jared Shields, the Manager of the Cowra Civic Centre, and Director Larissa Hackett, Director of Environmental Services, for your presentation and great engagement with the committee. We discussed both the Better Beats Committee and the footpath trading policy with these team members. The committee did a deep review of the footpath trading licensing policy update prepared by Manix, and you'll note in the recommendation here the committee has made a recommendation that council has a period where we where we don't apply the licensing application fee and licensing fee for people who sign up for footpath trading for the first year that they sign up. We all know there's lots of signs and trading throughout the main street, but there's a very low proportion that are registered as part of our system. It is quite a high fee, and in the past has been a complicated process. So as part of the work done by the CBD committee, it was put on the work plan of environmental services this year to review that policy and look at ways that we can increase engagement of our businesses in that policy. The policy prepared is really great, and the CBD have committed to taking on promoting to businesses around town to sign up in this short period so that they can get that waiver if that is supported by council here. And I think it's a good way for us to kind of meet in the middle to make sure people are following the rules, they know what grounds they can play within, as well as making sure that that we are getting that engagement from the team. And I think it's identified and reflected across here that often dollar figures set by the state government are quite high and quite problematic for our local community to deal with. So hopefully we'll get a large proportion of businesses sign up in that period, and then we would go and pay the annual licence fee, which is quite a bit less following the first year. I'd also like to pass on our thanks to Martina Lindsay, who sadly has stepped down from the committee. Martina's moving to Tasmania very soon. She's provided a really great insight from the arts community to the CBD committee, and we are looking at ways to fill that voice in the committee as well. The committee had quite a bit of discussion about an update from the General Manager about the projects identified from the CBD plan into the Council's delivery and operational plan and how they're progressing, with a very exciting tick of the town clock is now back up and working, which was one of the highest priorities identified at the CBD activation workshops last year. So I think that's a really good goal to kick in our first year of rolling out the CBD plan, that we've been able to tick off one of those 10 big moves that were identified in the plan. I'm sure people would have seen at the Christmas festival as well that there's a number of fairy lights in the trains down the street, and we are starting to see some more positive activation in that space. So the team had a very big meeting last time. We put together a bit of a more spread out work plan for the year ahead, but it's been really fantastic working with a great group of active and motivated people around the community.
Thank you. Councillor Downey.
I'm pretty sure there's not much else to say, Mr Mayor. We did have a very long meeting, so I'd like to thank all of the community members who were not paid to be there for giving us their time, but also just to support the trading application fee waiver, just to encourage businesses to be able to do that for the first 12 months after the audit, and us finding from staff that there weren't that many that were actually registered. I think it'll be a great way to get them on board, and also the staff are going to do an education program as well, so I think it'll be great for everyone. I hope you support it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and look, I think the CBD committee obviously very hard working, and again I'd like to thank Martina Lindsay for her time as well. I thank Councillor Watt and Councillor Downing for talking a bit about the footpath trading policy, because honestly I looked at here and thought, well, point 2 is asking for a waiver. I went through the minutes and just couldn't actually identify why that was even being considered. There was nothing articulated in the minutes to say why that decision was being, or that recommendation was being asked for, any budgetary implications, legal implications, or even whether there was perhaps a need to review the current policy to make it more user-friendly. So it's not that I'm not in support of it. I think it's more that I suppose a question, should it be noted somewhere in there that what the process is for ensuring that this is actually going to be workable, that we don't just wait it for 12 months, nothing happens, or only because there's nothing actually articulated in there to say, during that 12 months time, this is what expected to occur, this is the reasoning behind it. And I appreciate that it's all been given verbally, but there's nothing actually in writing. Is it the intention of the CBD committee maybe to put things in writing to say this is what we hope to actually achieve over that 12 months, so that we get to the end of 12 and say, right, we think that this should happen. So it's just my observation. I'm not trying to be critical of it at all. It's just that when I looked at it, I thought, well, there's nothing to back that up. It's just like plucked out of the air, and I wasn't there for that long meeting. And congratulations on that, staying awake. Well done. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment, Councillor Wright?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Kiss has raised the issue of how the application to be waived for 12 months application fee. I'll ask the question first. They still have to make an application to do footpath trading, don't they?
Through the chair, yes, you do have to lodge one. So that will cover your A-frames, the flags that go out on the street, and any footpath trading.
Thank you. It won't be precisely written in the minutes, but under 4.2 footpath trading, it was resolved that the committee made the report on the progress to reviewing the footpath trading policy, and that the committee recommended council waive the application fee for the first 12 months, licence fee, and they have to be lodged before the 30th of June 2026. It indicates to me that the review of the policy isn't complete. We're trying to get a better policy to put in place, and while that was being done, there'd be a bit of leniency. We'd forego any income expense to encourage people probably to do it, and put a bit of colour into the street. And when the policies were suitable, and when we feel it's a good policy to have in the boat, the expenses will be put back on. Thank you.
Right, anybody else wish to comment? General Manager?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll just clarify that the policy has been adopted. As talking to the committee about the implementation of it, that's when the idea came forward. I think I've had the discussion, but I think you must have the discussion with Larissa to put a report to council about the mechanics of how that might operate. I wouldn't expect you're going to get that before next Monday, but it certainly will be reported in January, because we'd also look at things like, well, if somebody's paid in the last 2 weeks, do they get a refund? Those sorts of things as well. So we'd be looking to report on just the mechanics of how that might work.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Watt, want to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the staff for responding to those questions. I guess this is one of those chicken and egg things as well, right? So if we adopt this motion tonight, that will then give the team, I guess, the direction to go and put together the work plan for how we roll this out. I think it's always interesting reading minutes from a meeting you're not at and figuring out how you get from there. But I guess the important background is reviewing the footpath trading policy is in Council's operational plan for this financial year. It's also in the CBD activation plan in response to identification that there's a discrepancy between people we have registered and how people are using the main street, but also because it's a way to make the street seem more alive, make it clear we all know when we see flags and signs out, things are open, right? So I think part of the reason there's not that background is because in the minutes, is because that background's in a lot of other documentation coming to this meeting. I think the discussion around the room generally was that we weren't necessarily setting a target for how many people or whatever it was, and it was kind of if you don't get on board, and you renew on the 1st of July, that's that's up to you, but the committee and the staff thought that this was a good way for us to bridge a bit of this gap, a good opportunity for both of us to engage with people we have relationships with and try this as a way to improve it. I think obviously at 30 June there'll be a reflection on how that's gone, but I think generally the consideration was from a budgetary perspective, either like the feeling now is that people aren't applying, so we're not getting that income from the application fee. The team would obviously have to wear a little bit of the staffing time that they're putting together to adopt those fees, but we think in terms of the long-term safety impacts of people having footpath training that isn't compliant, it's worth, I guess, having an impact there. And I think as well it's difficult for us to analyse the budgetary impact of applications that we don't know if they're going to come in or not. When it's not like we're waiving a fee that's currently being paid each year by businesses. So that's probably why there isn't a clear budgetary impact here, but I think overall this is a real show of the benefit of the CBD committee, that it's listening to issues raised both by businesses directly through the committee as well as at through the development of the activation plan, and having that different insights that the team wouldn't have had before from business owners and people who are interacting through business chamber and Cowra tourism in providing input how to make a policy effective.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Passed. Thank you. 4.1, the 2025 Bell Beach Music and Arts Festival Event Report. Councillor Kiss. Councillor Horton. Thank you, Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of good to be said about our Bell Beats Festival. We hadn't anticipated the numbers that we got, over 1,500. So it would be incredible to see that continue. We do have the funding to cover it for the next 2 years. As has been discussed though, there was a significant overspend, $40,000 in fact, which is quite alarming. There has been quite a lot of explanation provided, so I'd like to thank Director Alan Dalton for having provided a big explanation about how we can improve things over the next couple of years and what has contributed to this overspend. And I certainly appreciate that explanation. It's still quite alarming. However, I think it's a wonderful festival. I think it was successful. I'd love to see it continue. So I think it's just a matter of us then saying this is what we've learned. Let's learn from our mistakes this time and make sure that we can continue this long into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and yes, agree with the commentary by Councillor Kiss. Everyone knows I'm prone to using sayings and what have you. Look, it is more expensive to get a plane off the ground than it is to keep it in the air, right? So starting from scratch and with a limited runway to get the festival off the ground is not as you would plan it, right? Given options, you'd have a longer lead time. There's been a lot of discussion already as well around did we get the complementary marketing from some of the acts that we had along for this first one, and uniformly I think the answer was no, we didn't. And so complementary marketing, for example, if we have acts identified earlier with more lead time, is there a chance that we can get more marketing off the back of their own social media presence and what have you? Absolutely. where there's some capital expenses that we won't need to repeat second, third, fourth, fifth time, yes. There was some damage done to banners that we'd hope to use repeatedly, but again, we've paid for some things up front that we can reuse, so that'll reduce costs in the future. And of course, the other major activity will be around engaging businesses and seeking sponsorship. So it's not funds purely coming out of the grant money. So that the festival becomes self-sustaining. Obviously, is the goal, and that it is not just a 3-year grant-driven festival. That it becomes something that stands on its own 2 feet and becomes a fixture in our event diary for Cowra and the region. So very grateful to everybody that helped get it off the ground. There was a fair bit of stress on the day with some technical issues that unfortunately, when you've got lots of cables and lots of power and lots of things plugged into lots of other things and you haven't necessarily had as much time to trial stuff, sometimes things go wrong, but people managed to find a way through, and certainly as the event wore on and we got into early evening, it was a fantastic atmosphere, and people should be very proud of what they were able to achieve. So yes, an overspend, but certainly great opportunities, a great place to start, and something strong for us to build onto into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Wright.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. I was beginning my intensive tour of bathrooms in Uzbekistan at that time, and the only thing I discovered there was bathrooms in Australia are far, far better. But the $40,000 does concern me, but Councillor Horton has given me some reasons why, how it can be brought, they can pick up some savings next year and going forward. Roughly we did spend $120 for the 1,530 something that registered per head to put the concert on, but I suppose there could have been people there that weren't registered. I don't know if that was there. I'd be interested to know if the money spent around the town on that day was more than what the businesses that might benefit from it would have expected. Yeah, it's something we've got to do, and something we've got to do, and we've got to go forward positively. And as Councillor Horton said, we need a longer and better runway. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors. I think we're all here with mixed feelings about this report tonight. I attended the event myself and it was a fantastic night, and I think all of those who were there felt the same. There were people who travelled from out of town who saw the message and got a really great impression of Cowra by coming through. Unfortunately, 61% of the attendees were from within our shire, and part of the objective of this project is to increase tourism to Cowra, and beyond that 61%, a large amount are from surrounding towns who probably would have driven in for the event and then driven home. So we've got a lot of work to do from here. I think it's really important that we do quite explicitly acknowledge that 54% of the total budget was spent in 1 year. I do acknowledge that we were of course always going to spend more in the first year, but we spent 10% more of the total budget than we anticipated, and we are required under our grant to perform this event for 3 years, and I think we're in a difficult situation now where we only have $80,000 for each year going forward, and we spent $190,000 this year. We don't want to be in a situation where we lose the quality of the acts, which are of course going to be the significant pull, and serious marketing, which is our ability to get people from outside our area. So I think from here we need to take a strong focus on where to from here and learn some lessons about how we maintain our budget leading into and preparing a bit more focus on maintaining that over time and decisions that we make. I would put the ask out, I guess, to our community, for local businesses who would like to help promote this event. I think for all the local stall holders who took part, they found it really great exposure for their businesses. There was some really great food and wine and other things and activities that could take part. It was a really fantastic family-friendly event that we need to focus on promoting in the future, and focus on the great activity of hundreds of people coming through the Cowra Art Gallery who may not have been through before, who'll be able to see the great work we do. And of course it's not always a cost benefit in terms of dollars that we see come out, but we do need to be really careful because the purpose of these grants is for it to be sustainable going forward, and that will mean that we do need to invest in it here, and we don't want to be in a situation where we're taking money from other projects that we've committed to as council in order to prop up a project that we received grant funding for and haven't budgeted to spend other money for. But I think it's a great opportunity to flag this will be on the October long weekend next year. Have it on good authority that we have another ARIA nominated star, I don't know quite how to say it, stars who'll be there. So if local businesses are keen to get involved, get in touch with our team, and I reckon book in your friends and family to come for the weekend because it'll be a great one.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Watt? Wright?
Yeah, question, I probably overlooked it, briefly read through it. So we have to take the difference in the budget for the overspend out of the general account really, or can we draw money down out of the grant that wasn't meant to be spent this year?
I'm actually going to have to ask somebody to repeat the question. Unfortunately, the audio is not too good. Councillor Wright, it may have something to do with your proximity to the microphone.
Mr Chairman, I can answer the question. No, any expenditure will come totally out of the grant.
Anybody else? Councillor Kiss-Wright, a reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd actually like to leave my right of reply on a positive note. It absolutely was a fantastic night. I don't think anybody would say it wasn't. I applaud Council for being alive and forward-thinking in creating the Bell Beats Festival, and I look forward to seeing ideas from staff that can create sustainability with their innovative ideas, and obviously lots of forward time planning in getting it happening for next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Passed. Thank you. 4.2, the donation to Alex McFarlane for the Australian Junior Squash Championships. Councillor Downing. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Downing.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Horton's arms I would like to say, I'll just ask a question first. Do we know what about the discrepancy in the dates? That was a question that was asked to the director today.
Again, I apologise. Was the question around the timing of correspondence?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What happened in this instance was that the first application came through from non-traditional means. There was an email that was sent to the organisation, and unfortunately there was an administrative error in assigning that. Once that was detected, we were in contact with the applicant immediately and arranged them to fill out the appropriate forms which are dated post-event, but the original contact was pre-event, and so therefore we consider that it's something that's worthy of Council's consideration.
Thank you. I think that Alex McCullum is a great candidate for this. He attended the Australian Junior Squash Championships in September, October, representing New South Wales. At our Sport and Rec Networking Day, Alex was part of a panel of 4 young sports people from Cowra, and he was exceptionally impressive that day, and the thing that came across was his actual dedication and commitment to the sport, and so I'm really happy to support him going to this competition and giving him the correct donation.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Yes, thank you. And yes, notwithstanding the administrative error, absolutely agree that that shouldn't stand in the way of providing support. To state the obvious, it is not easy to get selected to represent a region, to represent a state, or to make it all the way to a national championship, and of course then on to international competition. So there's a lot of time and effort and travel even just to get selected at that level. So any small way we can support not only Alex but anyone else who demonstrates that level of commitment and hard work and dedication. I think if we can help in some small way, that's a good thing for us to do. Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody? Right, a reply, Councillor Downing.
Not necessarily.
Put the motion, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Passed. 5.1, the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority Joint Procurement Grant for FOGO investigation. Councillor Watt. Councillor Kiss. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm shocked that Councillor Horton isn't laughing at me for sticking my hand up all the time. But I'm very excited about this successful application for the grant, and congratulations to the team, both the grants team and the infrastructure and operations team for achieving this. FOGO is a really difficult space for councils in that we absolutely want to go down this path to help us in our management of our waste management and to be doing the right thing for the environment, but it is expensive and it is going to be a difficult rollout for us to get right. So congratulations to the team here. Really, this is just a great step for us in getting towards the deadline that we have to have FOGO implemented across the Shire by the 1st of July 2030. And I think it's a really smart way to do it with Hilltops and Redden, of whom we process some of the waste for the surrounding communities, so a good way for us to go forward here, and this should allow us to work through those challenges of how often, the impacts of different reducing bins or increasing bin services, as well as the methods for processing the FOGO. So congratulations again to the team, and looking forward to the report that comes from it.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I would second everything that Councillor Watt has said. We know FOGO is mandated, but even the people who say, we need a green bin, a lot of them don't understand that there actually has to be investigation and analysis. In order for this to happen, we can't just chuck out a green bin and then all of a sudden we've got somewhere to put it. So this is all to do with the investigation phase to make sure that we can actually get everything happening and in plan by 2030. And just a simple reminder to our community, we can have FOGO now in our own yards. Get a compost bin. A lot of us have them. Absolutely love them. Fabulous for the garden. So there are ways of contributing positively to the environment, even if you're concerned about there being still a few years until we have FOGO mandated. But this is an excellent achievement, and look forward to seeing the analysis at the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish? Councillor Wright.
I have a question first. Is Cowra Council receiving $210,000, $210,160 for their own analysis, or is that for the total for 3 councils, and we'll be putting it in our budget as we lead council in the review?
Through the chair, that's for the 3 councils, and we'll be putting it in our budget to lead the project.
Right, Well, thank you. This is all good. We've got to do a lot of research here to find out a means of how to handle what we may not be getting and what we really are getting as in the garden organics. It's a lot of that goes to the tip, and we used to try and mulch it and give it away, but now we can't give it away unless it's been tested and passes a very intensive testing regime to make sure it's not going to cause any problems to the people that use it. I'm a bit concerned that the review might not reach the heights that I would like it to reach, because our employee that's in this sector, the lead person we employed, had indicated at a NRM committee meeting, or it could have been economic or environmental sustainability meeting, that we'd most likely have to contract it out. We'll do it ourselves, and that may be the situation, but I'd like to start the review with the options of us doing it, and what we would expect from someone else doing it on our behalf. And I look forward to the findings, and it's going to be a necessary piece of analytical review that hopefully make our more efficient and meeting the ever-increasing standards required by the New South Wales state government, that you have to pump sewer into the ocean or carry the heavy metal sludge from the effluent sewage out here in the regional lands to spread on farms, so that no doubt then Australian native landscapes will be under even more pressure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Right, a reply, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and particularly thank you to Councillor Wright to raising that. I think the questions you've raised really lead into why we need to do a project like this and why it's useful to do it with our surrounding councils. Most councils who have implemented FOGO are in more metro areas and have different considerations and less ability to process FOGO themselves. But I think the project, one of the big pieces here will be looking at those business case analysis and options reports, because we know that we are a council that we do have a large and very functional MRF, but it also already takes a number of big activities on, and alongside this we are working on the development of the MRF master plan to consider, I guess, all those balances of, whether we're processing our own FOGO while we are also doing a substantial amount in processing difficult waste matters, as well as the container deposit scheme, which hopefully will continue as we're going to talk about next. But it is one of those real difficult considerations for us as council that I'm glad we're not having to make with the current resources we have, of whether to invest in all the infrastructure to process FOGO ourselves and what that cost benefit is. So hopefully we reach the heights, or the budgetary heights at least, that council Wright's after.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Passed. Thank you. 5.2, Water and Sewage Strategic Planning for Cowra Water Treatment Plant. Councillor Kiss. Councillor Watt. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a bit difficult to even know where to start with this particular recommendation. Director Weiner has given us a lot of food to consider here. But look, this is basically to note the information on the strategic plan and financial modelling. This is all about the Cowra water supply. And and there's also a lot of further studies to be done. It is a high-level plan. It is evident from the May 2025 report that there are significant decisions and investigations to be made in the near future if we're going to be maintaining a healthy water supply. It's going to be a huge job. Thank goodness it's been left in the experts' hands as far as the absolute details. There will be significant considerations such as funding, regulatory risk, WHS considerations. There's so much more to mention here. There have been considerable risks identified. We'll acknowledge that. As much as we don't like to see risks, it is important that they are identified, acknowledged, so that then they can be investigated and worked on, handled responsibly as well. So I congratulate Director Weimer on his document and wish him all the best in bringing it to fruition for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kiss, for moving this motion. We've got a night of very significant projects on our hands tonight, and while this might seem, I guess, like a little step in the stone, the maintenance and renewal of the water treatment plant is a very significant infrastructure project for this council, and I guess the decisions we make financially will have impacts for generations going forward. It is a project that we have budgeted to renew in around 2030, but one that is a significant financial impact on our operations and dependent on quite a bit of grant funding, but will still have quite a significant impact on our bottom line for quite a few years to come from there. And I think it's very important that we really consider both the balance of how we provide the highest quality of water to our community and how we appropriately manage that financial contribution and investment in our infrastructure. It does feel a little bit strange to say that perhaps a significant piece of infrastructure like that could last another 20 years, but I think in reality, looking at the way that infrastructure and monitoring has changed, those are really worth in considering whether we could make some smaller tweaks. It seems strange saying smaller because the dollar figure will still be quite large, but whether that's the right decision financially for the future. And it certainly isn't us looking to pass the cost to future generations or to a future council, but and I think if we were to decide to postpone it, this council would still to continue to put aside that money for the cost in 2050 if it were to come. So yeah, I just really thank the team for the work here. It is a significant piece of work that you've done to this point and that you're taking on going forward, and also to note that through reading the report I had raised some concerns that a number of risks were identified through the public works, and there was some lack of clarity in the way the report was written, that we aren't accepting the risks, we're accepting the articulation of the risks, and that we're definitely taking the law on board to make sure that while we're undertaking these considerations, any risks to our workers or the quality of water is being appropriately dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, I'll ask a question first. Why did this come to us as a confidential matter?
Through the chair, there was no reason identified for this report to be confidential.
Thank you, Director. I disagree with that. We've got a map out there now with possible sites for a water treatment plant, and I don't know if we own any of those three sites are, 12, 13, 14. You have the smart investor landowners or the real estate agents in town look at this map, get the information, and gear up the owners of that land and take us to the corners if we want to do something. That's why I would have added as confidential. And also raise, I don't really think of the revision when the Health Department put the land for sale alongside the current treatment plant. I went to the general manager and suggested we look at it as either further water treatment plant or something else that we might need as a council area, and it was deemed that we wouldn't need any further land for the water treatment plant or any other thing that we had. And it was $390,000 or something. We're not going to buy land and put pipes to it and re-extraction from the river for that sort of money. The electricity alone, it varies from 100-odd thousand up to 700,000, I think it was. To pump the water to the new areas, to the new treatment plant. And I suppose it shouldn't be too hard to hook it back into the delivery system. And it also raised that you might even be thinking of deferring it. It's got to 56,000 now, when we were 10 to 15 years ago, we were looking at $28,000, so that's doubled. And if we wait another 20 years, so double again, it'll be 100 million. The only way that we might be able to pay for it is if the water department buys a lotto ticket each week and hope to goodness that they win one of the big ones. We're selling less water per person. I'm telling you off the top of my head now, but we sell less water per person now than what we did in the year 2000. But we're spending more money on the recurrent operations of the current plan, or we've got to spend $56 million possibly to develop this new site, and there's no guarantee that the sun may water or will produce any cheaper. The water conference that I've been to, it costs us to about 35 cents to filtrate the water, but the other $3.50 or whatever we charge is all in getting it to the plant and delivering it, an update of the system. So our income, when people have learned, they don't need to use as much water as they used to. When we found that out in the 2019 drought, when we spontaneous not going to level 5 restrictions, but the amount of water per household was using was less than what the level 5 restriction was, so it wouldn't have saved any more water. And before, back in around the 2000 area, year 2000, people were using about the kiloliter a day in the household. Now it's come down to under 200 litres a day. And people just look at the bill and they look at ways of saving it. I'm not saying we're going to have to build this sooner rather than later, I think, and we're going to have to be very clever in finding the land. Perhaps we have got land around the water tower in West Cowra, I don't know. But I just hope that the investigations do bring a suitable option to go forward, and we're certainly going to have to be aware of the state government looking for funding to get this up and running. The first one would have been funded under a state government policy, but now when it comes to replacing them, it's not as clear, and the money's not available because they've got to build new highways in Sydney or something. And they can go billions over budget there, and it's just watering for ducks back. And those billions could fix a lot of water and sewer problems in New South Wales. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Horton?
I'm not sure Councillor Wright is going to be astonished or upset by this, but I feel like we might be on the same page. The this is one of those areas that I think, it's not necessarily the kind of thing that gets onto the front page of the paper unless something goes horribly wrong. People will put up with potholes in a road or other services that maybe aren't running as they would like, but we don't get the water right, we're in all sorts of trouble. I absolutely appreciate there are financial and physical realities in terms of alternate sites, funding the purchase of those alternate sites if that's what's deemed necessary, getting infrastructure to and from, what have you. I suspect though those costs aren't going to go down if we push them back any further. So very much appreciate the work that's been done. I think they clearly articulate the options that we have available to us. I just want to articulate that I think we need to move as quickly as we can towards a full replacement if that's what we need to do. Thank you. Understanding the budgetary issues.
Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Speechley.
Just to agree with Councillor Horton and Councillor Ryan, thank you. My daughter lives in Lithgow, and as most people would know, Lithgow had a situation recently where there was no potable water for, I think it was a week or more. A situation like that is what keeps me awake at night, honestly. It would be catastrophic, I think, for us to have a similar situation. So I tend to agree that we need to be very proactive about making sure that we have a good solution in a reasonably short time frame. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment? Right, a reply, Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to acknowledge what all my fellow councillors have said, fully support everything they're saying. It is a priority, it's unavoidable, it has to happen, but if we also think of it as positive, it's an investment in our future. So, thank you.
Put the motion, all those in favour? Against? Passed, thank you. 5.3, Container Deposit Scheme Sorting Line Upgrade. Councillor Kiss, Councillor Speechley, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got to be a little bit slower. Look, this is a recommendation that we note the information on the planned MRF Container Deposit Scheme sorting line upgrade. We have known for some time that the sorting line does need a few upgrades. The machinery is ageing, improvements are needed to keep this vital avenue of recycling in proper working condition. And it was actually an interesting document when you start looking at it a little bit more closely, as surprised as I was to find that. It will assist us in meeting our Cleanaway contract, which obviously we need to be able to do, and noting that it's been due for expansion mid-2027, I believe, also to be taking wine bottles. So I'm sure that it will increase the load significantly because we've got beautiful wines in Cowra. I've already seen planning for the additional capital expenditure, so that's good to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speechley.
Thank you. Look, it's really good to see that we are investing in the plant because there are some areas there for improvement. I just have one question actually, and it relates to a couple. Eddy current. I thought eddy current was for non-ferrous metals, so we'll pick up aluminium, but steel would be magnet.
You might have the advantage on me on that one, Councillor.
Okay, I'm not sure, but it's just because it said picks up steel and aluminium, and I'm not sure that's correct, but it's still, aluminium is the most valuable material, probably aside from PT, so we want to get every piece of aluminium out of what we collect, so fully supporting that.
If you look at my schematic on 219, I didn't include the steel on that aluminium separation, so
yes.
Probably second guess myself.
Yeah. No, that's all good. And the other question that I have on your comment is obviously this expansion to larger size bottles, which is not just wine bottles, it's also larger plastic PET, HDPE bottles. It's going to obviously put a burden on how much material we can store, I imagine. So aside from the sorting part of this, I hope that there's plans in place to review our storage and then obviously the on-selling of materials. But yeah, this is a good idea, and we should definitely do it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just give you a comment on that one. The contract will be up for renegotiation. Part of the contract is part of the existing contract is the pickup arrangements that Cleanaway have to make, because we don't want to be storing heaps of stuff for a long period. So that'll be taken into account as well, both our capacity to store and their requirement to pick it up.
Anyone else like to make a comment? Councillor Watt?
Thanks. First question. At the bottom we've got, the budgetary implications that will add 7,500 annual depreciation expense. I'm just not entirely clear, is that the additional $45,000 capex gets us up to 75,000 in capex, or is this 7,500 an addition because of this 45,000?
Oh, I agree. I should have made that clearer, because the 45,000 is just buying the kit, and then you've got to put it in. So I've allowed for the installation costs, so that the total cost of the installation being 75,000 with a 10-year life. Yep. 7,500 a year.
Yep. So what you're saying is that actually the project that we're approving, noting that you're reporting to us, is that it's a $75,000 addition to the budget and 7,500 each year for depreciation. Thank you. I think this is important. I would like to emphasise what Councillor Squetchley has said about the importance, I think, probably of having a holistic look at our offerings to Cleanaway for the CBS contract. This is up next year. The contract that Cleanaway holds with the state government is up from next year. Obviously, we hope to continue our partnership with Cleanaway, and that they will continue their partnership with the New South Wales government, because it is a substantial project that we have at Cowra Council, and an income generator for us, which allows us to do a lot of other things at the MRF. But it is, of course, a fine balance of, we want to invest in making sure that we're providing the best product, but we don't have the certainty of the continuation of that contract. But it is something that seems to keep coming back to us with new amendments to make. So it would be good to have perhaps a whole overview of where we're expecting it to go, and think strategically about how we do these upgrades.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor White?
Thank you. I'll ask a question first. We have to deal only with the Cleanaway subsidiary in this return of earning facility. We're not like that Shell workshop and Orange, Wabangling or whatever. Those people take stuff over there and get it sorted and get the money. Is that through Cleanaway subsidiary, or is that a separate arrangement?
Through the chair, that's a third-party arrangement, if you like. You don't have to have the CDS collection machine that we have at Woolies. Yeah, so that group at Orange, they can be the collection agency, but it ends up with Cleanaway. Does that make sense?
Thank you. That clears it up. This return of earnings has probably been more popular than they thought about. I think in Cowra here, we have to go to we used to, reverse now, they have got one down at Tarragona Street, which doesn't get the business that Woolworths does. There was at Woolworths one yesterday at 6 o'clock, and 3 or 4, one was operating, and there's 3 or 4 people lined up, and I said, we can go down to Tarragona Street, and I went down there, and there's no one down there, and they all looked to be taking, I couldn't, one glass, we couldn't read what was on the screen, but three holes were operating, and I think, I don't know if it would be in our interest to, in all this investigation, if we can become a third-party collector back to work under this Cowra system, and we could pick up the service clubs and so forth to take these containers to Orange, because it's a lot easier and quicker, even though you're driving an hour or so each way. And I just think we'd be able to get more stuff in and keep the business going here. And I fully support the investigation and what you've got there, and that it improves work health and safety. Just with the PET containers, does that include the large milk container and ice cream containers? It's not just drink bottle things that you want to dial up?
Through the chair, I'd have to take that one on notice, councillor, about the larger milk bottles.
Yeah, because we get more milk bottles than that we do in this container, or just as big a bag, probably less of them, but and they go into a Murph and they are compressed, I think, into a vial and sent somewhere. And I definitely think we do need a vial where the people haven't got to tie the knots themselves. So I fully support what you're doing here, and I think it's the only way we can go forward. This recycling is a major component of government legislation and the industry going forward with the carbon reduction and everything, and using less landfill. Well done.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Dean?
I'd just like to say, just to answer Councillor White's comments about Rainbow, which is in Orange, the Rotary Club take a road over there every 1 to 2 weeks or something like that, and that's for the larger roads. But it would be actually very interesting to investigate how we get something like that as a third party going forward. So these are our major income streams. If we could expand it, that would be great. And the holistic approach is definitely the way to go looking forward. So these improvements are great, and we need to keep building on them, I think.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Right or reply, Councillor Kiss?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate all the comments from my fellow councillors. Just something I'd like to add in here too, I see it as a bit of a fallback. I've noted that the new CDS sorting line will have components that can be utilised elsewhere if the current sorting contract doesn't get renewed or renegotiated, which we hope is not going to be the case, but at least it's a bit of a fallback for us just in case. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Passed. Thank you. 6.1. The adoption of the revised access incentive scheme grant funding guidelines. Councillor Kiss. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
I'm sure there are way too many headings, names in that heading anyway. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. We did discuss the access incentive scheme, blah blah blah, back in August when it went out on public exhibition from September to October. There were no submissions received. The major adjustment or modification to it was that we removed eligibility for the scheme from educational institutions. Other than that, only very few minor changes, spelling changes, I think that's about it. And I commend this to go to Council for adoption at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, yes, as discussed, we revised, updated, made some changes. It's been out on public display and has come back without any further suggestions or additions to it. Just to remind everyone, while sometimes things like this can feel a bit procedural, the point of this, one of the points of a scheme like this is literally to improve opportunity and access for people. So it might be a ramp or a guardrail to you and me, but if that means someone can access a business or a playground or something else that they haven't been able to access previously, that might be a really big deal to them. So thanks to everyone for your input and happy to see this progress.
else wish to comment? Right to reply, Councillor Kiss.
Needed, thank you.
Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Pass, thank you. 6.2, DA application number 10.2022.61.3, lot 2, 3 and 6, DP 1096603, 19 Collis Drive, Cowra. S 4.551A, modification to light industry, modification of floor plans and elevations. Lot 2, lodged by J.R. Morgan Investments Proprietary Limited. The property owner is J.R. Morgan Investments Proprietary Limited. Councillor Horton, Councillor Kiss. Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's a very long title and a very detailed title for this DA. And you would expect with such a long and complex title that the DA itself was also long and complex. It is not, however, particularly long and complex. It's come to us because the original DA came to us, so any subsequent change as a matter of procedure needs to come to us. This is effectively about windows and doors, so happy to support this one. It's about slightly changing some access to make use of accessible toilets, adding in some windows and doors, so nothing particularly controversial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Horton said, I think the main take on this is that none of the modifications are to the existing satisfactory assessment. I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Wright.
I have a question. Are these two sheds already been built?
Through the chair, one of them has definitely commenced construction. I would have to take it on notice with regard to the second one.
Thank you. No, I support this. Even if they have been built, these things can occur after the erection of the said sheds, and whatever the tenant is might need something different to what he had planned, so it's got to be updated. I wonder why it was received in July 25 for the mild ones, and then the DA modification came through in November. They must have did two sort of modification reports. There's different companies doing it. Anyway, I'm sure that our staff would be on top of it, and it's very good that Collis Drive development now is, I don't know if there's any blocks left for sale, and many sheds over there with different varied businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Right to reply, Councillor Horton.
No, not required. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Pass. Thank you. Okay. 6.3, the draft Cowra Shire Development Control Plan for 2026. Councillor Watt. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said earlier, tonight is a night of very big and important projects and documents. I often say that I think the Development Control Plan is the most important document we look at as councillors, and the adoption of a new one extremely important. So we've done some work to modernise the DCP as it stands and improve some inconsistencies, reflect on what the community's raised with us, and make some changes here. I think it's very important that probably even more So with this document, putting it for public exhibition is really an opportunity for the community to provide that feedback, and we really want to hear how the DCP works in reality with people on the ground, as opposed to things like access incentive grant, where in reality that does feel a bit more procedural because it's about how we're administering a piece of policy. This is something that is really close to our community. I think some important updates we've made, primarily to having some good tables of contents and consistency of pages, but a really great addition I'm excited about is that there's a glossary at the beginning of planning terminology, that we've made expansions to height controls of ancillary buildings like garages to enable easier storage of caravans, because we really want to be an RV friendly community, and we know a lot of our community are increasingly investing in the caravans as their way to travel the country, and so that's something that we're regularly getting as a DA that needs to come to council for approval, but we think it's something that across the board the community are keen to support. We've put in some improved clarity around street parking calculations and street design, when how many houses in a street equals how wide the street is and how many on-street parking is required, as we've had some challenges with that over the past few years, as well as some improvements to the sustainable building design controls, including a directive to aim to maximise passive solar heating and minimise the need for artificial lighting, which are all really important. But as I said, I think this is a really important moment for us to say to our community that we want to hear from you about what we think the type of town and community we want in terms of our buildings and our facilities are. The report will go on exhibition at some point in January, and there'll be a number of public space consultations where you can come and talk to our wonderful Director of Environmental Services, I'm sure, and her team, because it is quite a dense document and sometimes hard to work through if you're not a nerd like me and like reading it and carrying it around. The best answer is probably just to ask the team. Very good. Well, thank you.
Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Probably not a lot to say after that. Only that, look, this DCP, it's had to be redone as opposed to just reviewed, not only because there have been so many regulations put in place, but also we want to make sure that it does line up with our Cowra housing strategy, because we do want to promote growth, we do want there to be an increase in houses, but we also need to ensure that the way that happens is responsible as well, so that we're comfortable with the way things happen for the future. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
I've just got a question. What's in the agenda here is sort of a introduction background. All those compressed files and big thinking, they're the actual detail, are they?
Through the Chair, yes, what we've done is provided each chapter of the draft DCP as a document for you to go through at your leisure through the hub, because it was too big to put all as one.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it's one of those things, it's one of the plans that anyone interested in doing something in Cowra needs to have input into, but it does, I find it difficult when there's that much you've got to look at, and the way you've done it is, I presume when it goes out on exhibition, this introduction part will be there, and then the compressed things will be still available. So more than likely it will be only on a digital format, because there'll be a lot of paper to print everything out, won't it?
Through the Chair, what we will do is provide hard copies of it in the library and at our admin centre, and we'll also deliver hard copies out to the villages as well. We will be holding workshops with the community and we are also hoping to have a shop front similar to what we did with the housing strategy, so that people can come in, ask us questions, and we can provide answers and guidance to them.
Thanks very much. We probably need to do a bit more reading before I ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Okay, you want to reply, Councillor Watt?
Kept reading, it's really exciting.
I'll put the motion, all those in favour?
Yes.
To do that, yes, raise your hands, please. All those in favour? Okay, 7.4. Late reports, 7.4. Development application number 102025.42.1, lot 1, DP 163191, 29 Liverpool Street, Cowra, demolition of existing buildings and construction of a centre-based childcare facility, lodged by Black Ink Architecture Proprietary Limited. The property owner is Liverpool, New South Wales Corporation Proprietary Limited. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Horton. Thank you, Councillor Fagan.
You're right, Councillor Wright. Okay. This is a very important document. It's a very exciting DA, another one for Cowra Shire to actually have a new childcare centre in the middle of town. The proposal largely complies with the EPA Act. It's permissible in the general residential zone, consistent with general objectives, aligns with the childcare planning guidelines, has traffic and parking impacts are acceptable, with adequate on-street parking capacity in the adjacent council car park. The requested parking variation is reasonable and well supported by evidence and does not create safety or congestion issues. The acoustic and visual privacy concerns have been addressed, and through amended plans, acoustic fencing, screening and operational noise limits, earthworks and retaining walls are appropriately engineered, and dilapidation report conditions safeguards neighbouring properties. All required services are available. My understanding is the proposal will not cause adverse or social or economic impacts. Having competition between businesses is not a valid planning consideration. The development will improve access to early childhood education for our community, and we've already had a couple of other early childhood education places starting in Cowra, and that is one of our priorities in our strategic plan. I think we can tick that off without having to do anything, which is a great thing for us. It's also, overall, the design is fit for purpose, responsive to neighbourhood concerns, and represents high quality infill development. I think we can confidently support the approval of this development application. I think it's been well assessed. The proponent has come back a number of times to consider the variations that have been asked for, and I think it's actually been a very strong application, and I think we should support it. Thank you.
Councillor Horton.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't agree more. I think this is absolutely a very exciting development. We've had a lot of conversations here in a lot of different meetings about access to childcare and the flow and effects that has in terms of opportunities for employment, people to be able to participate in the economy more greatly. So this is a fantastic opportunity for the town. It's actually a bigger development than I anticipated. The number of spaces available is fantastic. I think it's in a great location. You've got St Raph's just down the hill a bit further, so it's not hard to imagine that parents dropping kids off to St Raph's might also have younger children that they drop off to daycare. There might be new workers that come to work at the new hospital that have young children that maybe can access it because it's just down the road from the new hospital. And of course, very close to the main street as well. So lot of potentially retail and hospitality workers might be able to access it as well if they're at work during the day. There has been some back and forth with the proponents, and it seems to me from reading this that they've been very responsive in responding to any questions or concerns that have been raised. It ticks the box. One of my big things has always been infill opportunities where we have development that can access existing services without the need for us to foot the bill for developing more services or laying pipes, cables, whatever the case might be. So this ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's, as Councillor Fagan said, a very exciting development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Wright.
Question, was this a block that we had to get access from the Target and our car park sorted out after it was sold?
Yep. Yes.
So there's only one house on there to be knocked down, or two?
Through the chair, there's only one existing dwelling on site, and that's the one that will be demolished.
Thank you. If they tick all the boxes, they can very well to go ahead. There must be an unlimited number of childcare spots you can have under this government regime. It's not like doctors only get allocation to a certain number of Medicare spaces or whatever they are in certain areas, and this childcare facility business is growing like mushrooms. The beauty of these things is people can keep having children and put them in childcare and pick them up in year 12 or end of 4 years of university, raised, washed and educated. And the only input you've had to have is keep signing cheques. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Downing.
I'd like to comment. I'm going to be voting against this, and it is to do with the parking. The variation is that they're requesting 12 less parking spaces. The actual traffic assessment and parking assessment is a mess. They don't actually talk about the parking apart from the council car park that they are proposing to use in the DA. Is that a general thing that we normally do? Can I ask the director, please? So if I'm doing the development and there's a council car park next door, I can just request and say that that's available and I can be used, and the DA can be assessed as that?
Through the chair, it has happened in the past. There are other businesses within Cowra that utilise council car parking as part of their parking controls.
And they're not requesting that they pay anything for the maintenance of the parking spaces?
No.
Okay. So another part of the traffic assessment says about the public transport, which is absolutely laughable. We don't have public transport in Cowra. The times they're saying that people who dropped off, and they're actually saying bus schedules and bus routes. I've had a look. They're not going anywhere near at those times. And the bus station that they say in the report is actually a school, not a bus station. And as far as I know, you can't just get on and off a school bus in St Matthews and take your child to and from daycare. I also suggest that there is a Wyandotte to Canberra bus, so I'm not sure which participants of the childcare centre would be going from Wyandotte to Canberra and how they're getting back again. But that was also mentioned. Page 105, they say that's the bus schedule, and they also say that I don't actually think they know where it is in their assessment, where the actual thing is. They say that it is to the east of St Matthews, Cowra Public School is to the north, which is clearly to the south and makes absolutely no difference to this DA whatsoever. So I'm questioning the parking and traffic assessment, and I'll be voting against it for that. And I would suggest that also the ACN of the company owner is not a valid ACN either when it's looked up. So they might issues with it. I think it's based on the public transport system and it using it quite a bit in the traffic report, and that is non-existing, that's not a thing. So I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment?
I've got a question. It's been stated that businesses use our car park and they've got approval to use it. I find that very hard to understand. Now, the bit of Target car park that's been used by the hospital, is that going to be an ongoing arrangement, or because I would have thought that Target building would have to supply so many car parks for its business, but if they're going to take those car parks out and don't give them back and leave it to the hospital, or are they going to do a deal with this mob to take car parks out of the system? Is that complicated enough not to be able to understand where I'm coming from?
Councillor Wright, I believe that the hospital have indicated they will continue to use that car park at the top end on the northern end of the car park at the rear of the old Target building, whilst the demolition and car park is built at the hospital, but I got the impression that they won't be using it after that.
Thank you.
Yes, we don't own the car park or the New South Wales Health Department park their cars, they do.
I believe not.
So that's not a point that we should be discussing in this day.
That's correct for Mr. A, but Councillor Wright asked a question and I've answered it.
I ask another question. That car park is being used by the Health Department. It's part of the Target car park, and the Target would have had to provide that car park for utilisation of their business that's in that building, whoever owns that building. They cannot sell, I wouldn't think, it was a community thing to decide to give it to the hospital use. But going forward, they've got to have an open car park there for people that might frequent the city follies and the empty space upstairs. It's beyond their DA.
Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just with regard to the parking, and certainly I don't always like that businesses then want to use the council car parking, but I understand, what their approach is in this instance. But do we actually keep tallies, so that we can understand longer term implications of, we've said that this particular business can have so many council car parks. What happens if there's another business that happens next door or the one down and they say, well, we want to use 20 car parks? Are they actually tallied so that we can say, no, sorry, all of these have already been set aside for these particular businesses?
I would have to take that on notice.
Anybody else wish to comment? Another question, yes.
Are we telling them they can have these car parks if we're still on these parks? Is that because they've suggested that there's 42 parks there, are we giving them permission to park there?
Through the chair, that's what they're seeking as part of their development consent, so yes, we would be.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
But before you go, Councillor Wright, Councillor Speechley.
Sorry, just to follow on from that, the car park is a public car park, is it not? Yeah. So how can we say that these spots are allocated to you? I think it's a case of, just like when we go to a concert or something else, if there's a spot there, you can park there to go and do whatever you need to do. It's not going to have a sign on it, I hope, that says this is for the childcare centre. It's just those spots are there for anyone in the community to park, whether they're going to the club, they're going to Silly Sollies, they're going to the pub, whatever. But it really comes down into, people parking appropriately, but no one actually owning that space because there's a public car park, correct?
Yep, through the chair, it would be a similar arrangement to what's in effect now with Coles. There's no specific signs there saying Coles car park only.
Councillor Wright.
So this report says that they can use car parks in our car park without making any contribution, but they can count them on what they're supposed to provide. Is that right?
That's correct, similar to what has occurred with other businesses in Cowra.
I don't think it has sort of be clearly identified that and how many car parks they're going to take. If that's what we're going to do, I've already stated I was in support of it, but it's clearly a very murky area and they're pushing the limit. And I think this has got to be clarified before it goes any further. I'm out of order, I'm speaking a second time, but previously, if you could provide the car parks and they're going to use a council public car park, they'd be putting in $2,000 or $3,000 a car park. Now, I'm going back 20 or 30 years, and like Malcolm Wakefield and Tom Rouse, and they knew all what it was. It can be used as a long-term car park. Admittedly, business workers park in the car parks and go to work the other side of the street, but when you're up front and letting them use it, with no compensation, no rent, this is one of the reasons why I suggested that we buy that car park behind the Lachlan Hotel, was to keep car parks so that if someone did want it, car parks, they would buy them off it. And the going rates are about $7,000 a car park per space.
Councillor Wright, it's interesting to note that it's all right to be out of order.
I'm only out of order when the mayor tells me out of order and I stop before he said anything. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else final comments? Right, a reply, Councillor Fagan.
I understand the concerns that the community has and the councillors. I just feel that we're not talking about permanent car parks. We are talking about 11 permanent car parks that will be provided for the staff, and that most of the people attending this preschool will be dropping off and picking up children at different hours of the day. And so it's not permanent car parking that they'll be taking up. There are a number of car parks in the street. There are some in the car park at the back. People will be dropping off and picking up depending on the times that they need to. I do think that this is a really good application. It's been well assessed. It is in the middle of town. It's always going to be difficult. It's not an easy place to get to. I'm not saying it's a great spot. All I'm saying is it's a really good development for us. It's $1.5 million for our community, and I think I'd be really, really disappointed if we didn't give it the go-ahead just because we couldn't access car parking. And I think, as I said, car parking is coming and going. A lot of this is car parking is coming and going. And as Councillor Horton said, people can do 2 drops. St Ralph's is quite close. A lot of people hate driving from one place to the next. It would be very convenient. It's not the ideal spot. I agree with that, but I do think in this commercial world and in the way that people want to go back to work, and as Councillor Wright said, I don't think anyone drops them off and picks them up when they're 18 and they're all well and fed and beautifully mannered. I think it's a lot of hard work for people, and it's a lot harder work for people these days when they do go back to work, and they have to go back to work for the cost of living. And this will give more of our community options, and they will vote with their feet. If they don't want to go to this preschool and it's difficult and they can't get there in the car park, they won't go. I do think it will give some options for people going, more options for people working at the hospital, because very close to the hospital. I think it's got some really good attributes, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that this is a great development. It's good that these people have come from I don't know where to actually do this, and I think it gives all of our people new opportunities to go back to work if they need to. So I'm very confident that it should go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry you can't address the council. I'm sorry. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? is carried.
That's it.
Does anyone have any notices of motion? If not, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.